Hi everybody, I'm Stefan for a-tutspost.com, and in today's episode we are going to create this element right here, and it's very interesting. So let's get started. Let's set the opacity of our reference image to 25% and just double click on the rectangle mask 2 and set the stroke thickness to 6. And with the layer selected, we select the pen tool and just draw an additional line element here, just like so, and then we select the layer again and create one more shape here. So we are ready with our main frame. Let's rename it. And now let's focus first on this part here. So let's create another line and let's set the stroke thickness to 2 and just make a line element and open the properties of the shape and the stroke and just click on dashes, so we create some dashes here, and let's change the size to probably 5. I think 5 is a good size. So let's rename the layer and just duplicate it and move it over, and you can use a repeater to do that. But we have only a few copies, so I think this is the fastest way to do it. And now let's take the rounded rectangle tool and just use the fill and remove the stroke, and let's create a shape here, and let's add a repeater and play with the position for the repeater. So we position the elements like so, and we are going to duplicate the layer, and let's call this one meter base, and let's rename this one. So the base for the meter, we are going to set it to 25%, and we are going to open the top copy and open the repeater and set the number of copies to 7, and just type wiggle 1,7, and let's set the end opacity for the repeater to 50% or even 10, and this way we get this nice animation. So we are going to color code it by making the meter wide yellow, excuse me, and just slide it over here and duplicate it once again, and let's move it over here. And what we need to do is to type some text here and some numbers. Let's use our digital font, and let's type some numbers here, and let's make them white and probably increase the size to 30, and open the source text, and we are going to paste our expression for generating random numbers. So here we have some different numbers, and the text is very basic and boring stuff that I'm going to leave to you, and I'm going to focus on this here. So let's select the rectangle tool and let's draw a shape, and let's add a repeater modifier. It seems to be our favorite modifier so far, and not the favorite one, but one of the most helpful modifiers for the shape layers. And let's set the number of copies to 90, and let's rename it to like so, and set the opacity to 25%, and rename the top one. And let's open the repeater once again and set the number of copies to 9, and just out click and type Wigo 2,9 and set the end opacity to 25%, so, or maybe 50, and just set the opacity to 100% for the layer. And let's duplicate this and move it like so, and duplicate it once again, move it and duplicate it once again, and move it here. So as you can see, we created the almost the O element here. Let's create another shape. Let's take the pen tool and with the fill set to white and stroke thickness to 0, let's draw a shape just like so, and let's rename this to Wowing and set the color to green, and let's add a repeater modifier again and play with the repeater. Set this to 20 or 18 and add like 100 copies, and let's hit P for position and just offset it and turn the layer off. Select the rectangle mask tool, set the stroke thickness to 2, and let's remove the fill, and let's draw a shape here. So this is our shape, and let's rename it Wowing Frame, and let's create a solid layer and let's call it Wowing Matte. So we are going to use this as a track matte for the wowing, and let's create a mask layer like so, and select the wowing and set it to use the layer above as a alpha matte, so we see the lines only there, and just open the mask properties and set the mask expansion to -2, and set a keyframe for the position in the beginning of the timeline and set a keyframe at the end, and oops, let me reset the keyframes and just move the element like so, set a keyframe and slide it over, and we get this movement here. And now let's select the pen tool and just make sure that everything is unselected, and just make a shape like so, and let's call this let's rename it, and now create a new shape, and let's add a repeater modifier to this one. Open the repeater options, and let's play with the position for the repeater and increase the number of copies as well, and let's set them to 35, and let's link this one to this and just duplicate it and flip it like so, and then let's create a new solid and let's call it grid, and let's come to effect generate grid, apply a grid, and let's change it to width slider, and let's set the grid border to 1, and let's reduce the size of the grid to 6, and let's play with the grid, probably set the border to 2, or something like that, and let's create a math grid, and we are going to create a alpha math for the grid, so we see the grid only in the bottom part of the element. And here is our alpha math for the grid, and set the grid to 25% opacity. And now we need to create a rectangle element here at the center, and then we need to create the corners of it. So I'm going just to do it this way and just duplicate it, and let's take the anchor point with the pen behind tool and move it here, rotate it like so, and just offset it here, and now duplicate this one and move it to the bottom here, and just duplicate it again and move it here. And we are going to create a new object, take the new object and move it at the center of the rectangle. So we are going to select it and use the guides to find the center of the rectangle, and select the new object and just place it there. And now let's remove the guides, select all the corners, link them to this, hit S for scale, set a keyframe for scale, move 10 frames forward, set the scale to 120, and move 10 frames forward and set this to 100, and then alt click and just go to property and select our whoop out expression, so we get this. And the rest is basically some wiggling numbers here, which are easy to create, and this one is here, which are created using a type layer and using the opacity technique like so. Let's go to advanced and change this to index, and go to the first frame, set the offset to 0, 10 frames forward set it to 1, 10 frames forward set it to 2, then set the keyframes to toggle hold keyframes and alt click and go to property and select the whoop expression and just repeat that. And as you can see, it's very easy to create this. So that's it for this tutorial. Hope it was interesting and useful for you. Once again, I'm Stefan for ATutsPlus.com, and we'll see you next time.